just a quick little follow-on from the Lightroom tutorial that I've just finished about editing a rescue session from start to finish, focusing on workflow and basic editing in Lightroom. So I've now exported the images from Lightroom as PSD files, Photoshop files. This is the master file format that I keep all my files in. And then if I need to create JPEG versions for various reasons, I'll make them off the PSD files. So I've just opened a few images at a time here. So the first 4 images. I'm just going to edit this one to start with. So the first thing I'll do is just pixel level editing stuff. So I'm going to get rid of the lead first. So, whoops, start again. Using the patch tool, which I've done a tutorial about in the past, which you can refer to for more information. I'm going to take that from there. That's done a pretty good job. Just a little bit of cleaning up. Yep, that's cool. Yeah, still doesn't really have any goobers around the eyes, just a tiny little bit here maybe. And I'll use the, what is that called? The spot healing brush tool. Just fix that up a little bit. Very, very clean dog, so I can't see any bits of dirt or gunk or anything else that I'd like to Photoshop out here. So to get an idea of what I need to do to make the image look good and not have any colour casts, I often will just ask Photoshop, and I do that by doing an auto colour balance and an auto levels just to see what Photoshop says that it thinks I should do. So I'll do an auto tone to start with. The shortcut for that was Shift-Command-L. So it's made it quite sort of pinky, a little bit magenta. So the difference between my edit and what Photoshop thinks, I kind of think I prefer mine. It's a little bit, perhaps a little bit greener. So it's probably telling me that maybe my image is a little bit too green, but not to the extent where that Photoshop has corrected it to. So another thing I do is an auto color. So that's Shift-Command-B. And again, it's telling me that it thinks my image is a little bit green, so it's trying to make it a bit more sort of pinky coloured. So I'm going to just go back here, and then I'm going to go into levels. Now, what I like to do here is to go through each channel individually and see if there's any missing information on the histogram that I can fill in. So I'm going to look at the red channel. A little bit of a gap at the end here. Moving this across here just kind of gets the pink highlights out of the highlight area. So I'll move that across a little bit. Green again. A little bit across here. And then blue. So I haven't really changed it much at all there. The next thing I'm going to do is actually look at colour balance. So the shortcut for that was Command-B. Now it seemed to think that my image was a little bit green, so I'm going to add a little bit of magenta in and see if I think it improves it. Might have even been a little bit cyan, a bit of red. Maybe a tiny little bit. A lot of these are just the tiniest little adjustments that you think don't make much of a difference, but kind of do. Yeah, okay. So I've added a little bit of magenta in, and a tiny bit of red, and I'm gonna leave it as is because I'm really quite happy with that color balance. I don't think there's too much wrong with it. So okay on that one. Next thing I do, I've got a few actions set up just to do a couple of little sort of workflow tasks that I do quite often. So if I find that I'm doing a certain amount of steps quite frequently in my editing process, I'll turn it into an action. So I've got a standard color edit here that basically just adds a saturation layer and a contrast layer and a defog. So without it is that, with it is that. So I'm not even sure if you're going to be able to see the difference here. I'll jack this right up. Opacity of 9 on both. So at pretty much full strength, that is what it does to the image. Just gives it a bit of a pump and a bit more contrast. But I don't want to do that to this image because I think it was reasonably good to start with. So I'm going to take the saturation down to about 7 and the contrast down to about 3. The defog is mainly concerned with sharpness. So if I zoom in here and put the defog on 100 and then turn it off and on, off and on, you see what it does there. It's more of an edge sharpening rather than a pixel level sharpening tool. So I'm going to take that down to about 3 because it's pretty sharp, it doesn't really need that much more sharpening. So that's without, that's with. So as you can see, again, it's not much difference at all. While I've got this here, I'm also going to just do a little bit of burning in on the background because it's quite a bright backlit background. So I'm just going to get the burn tool, quite large brush, only 20% exposure. And then I'm just going to run around the outside here, give a tiny little bit of a burn. So that's all I really did there. And then I'm going to flatten that. And the last thing I do is have a little bit of a fiddle with the eyes. So again, I've got an action for this that I run. And what I do to work this action is basically grab the brush tool and paint in with white on the black mask to reveal the eyes. So I'll turn this off and on, just a tiny little bit of a sharpen. And because they're quite light eyes already, I'm actually not going to give them too much of a sparkle. Sometimes I'll lighten them up a little bit and increase the contrast even more, but they're quite bright eyes to start with, so I don't want to go overboard because we don't want to get those crazy alien zombie looking eyes that you see sometimes. So I'm going to flatten that again. And that I am quite happy with, so I will save that, and that is then my master PSD file. That's pretty much it. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you tune in for the next tutorial. The important, interesting thing with this edit, what I like to do is go back to the start in my history and then have a quick flip between the start and the end of the process to see the difference that I made. So I've got into my history palette here, scroll back up to the start and down to the end. So that's the difference between the image that I brought into Photoshop and the image that leaves Photoshop. I just thought you guys might like to see that. Okay, I'm really going now. Bye.